Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Tonight we're going to be looking at Hot Stuff number 5 through number 8, a ground level comic published between 1977 and 1978. And it was published by Sal Cortuccio Productions. So he was the guy who did all those portfolios in the 70s. He was basically like the Cadillac of portfolio publishers. Cranked out a lot of them, very high quality stuff. But he had this anthology called Hot Stuff. Hot Stuff started in the early 70s. The first 2 issues were magazine size. But it was like one of those prozines. You know, technically it was a fanzine, but I mean, it was slick as hell. Like full color covers, top quality contributors like Richard Corben, and just a lot of great stuff in it. I usually like to show off full runs of comics when I show off stuff. But, after 40 years of looking for Hot Stuff number 1 through 4, I've kind of given up hope. And I don't think I've ever even seen them at any price in the wild, in a comic shop or anything. So I probably will never get them if I haven't by now. But I had these, and I gotta say, looking over these today, it was such a nostalgic time, because Hot Stuff number 6 here was one of the first comics I bought through Bud Plant, the mail order guy. I must have been like 11, I think, and maybe even 10. And I bought it because there's a Mike Nasser story within, and I collected everything that Mike Nasser did. But then, of course, because of that, I was introduced to all this other crazy stuff. And I remember it filled me with this quandary that was very delicious. It was just like, some of the stuff in here still confuses me. I'm reading it as a 58-year-old, and I'm like, oh man, this is weird. I don't know what the hell's going on. So imagine me at 10, used to reading, Marvel 2-in-1 and DC Comics Presents, and I'm confronted with this weird adult bizarro stuff. Very heavy metal, like some of the stories in here, but really good stuff in here. Some amazing stuff. You could tell just by looking at these covers. I mean, this is some world-class, a world-class roster of contributors. So let's crack these open. Here we have number 5. Oh man, look at that, guys. Richard Corben. That is so fucking gorgeous. Richard Corben is such an amazing artist, but really, he's probably the best colorist that ever existed in comics. His colors are just amazing. They're dumbfounding. Like, nobody can color like this. Just so rich and it's just beautiful. So let's crack this open. That's a good way to start off a comic. So here's the introduction page. There's a little editorial from Sal Cortuccio, and talking about all of his plans, things that are coming out. And this is an interesting issue because it's a round-robin tale. It's 4 chapters of this kind of fantasy epic called Tales Out of Erthea. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's book 2. I'm pretty sure book 1 was in an early issue of Hot Stuff. And now, so this fantasy, tale is the brainchild of Herb Arnold. He writes the whole issue. He'll draw a chapter, which we shall see later, but every other chapter is drawn by a different artist. But it's all one story. And kind of a fun idea. Some of the artists aren't that great, though. and starting with here, this first chapter, and all the framing pages are by Tim Kirk. Tim Kirk was he was big in like sci-fi fandom. He did a lot of illustrations for sci-fi fanzines. And here he's drawing a comic. I don't think I have ever seen him do another comic other than this. You can tell already it's a very kind of almost like Dungeons and Dragons style comic. Very fantasy based. So here's Tim Kirk's chapter, actually starting now, The 4 Demigorgons. We start off, we're at this wizard's castle named Arvek, and we see this kind of bestial guy, and he's the agent of an evil wizard named Sternblack. Supposedly Arvek is in league with Sternblack, so this guy is like, okay, I'm in good company. All of a sudden he finds himself frozen, And Arvik says, yes, it's those magic candles in front of you. I'm actually not in league with Sternbeck. In fact, I'm in league with this white wizard, Almondine. And he also introduces an air sprite, this woman named Turwell. I kind of like the way he draws this guy. It almost looks like Maurice Sendak or something. Like he could be in Where the Wild Things Are. So, of course, he's like, curse you and your white magic. So, apparently he was a courier. And he was transporting this statue, the Black Idol. And Arvik takes it out of its satchel. And apparently he's part of like a chain of couriers. He was going to drop it off with some mercenary. So now this guy tells the story of the statue and why it's important. Apparently at one time, the 4 demigorgons ruled the world. North, south, east, and west. They had all these fanatical worshippers. And the southern worshippers succeeded in stealing the idol of the eastern demigorgon and cast it into the sea. So they couldn't summon their gorgon anymore. Basically, their gorgon was trapped in the earth without that little statue, the idol. So the eastern faction retaliated by seizing the black idol of the southern demigorgon. So they had a huge bloody war. And so everyone else in the world got tired of this crazy war, and they basically either killed them or scattered them to the 4 corners of the earth. I guess the Eastern cult has managed to survive. And to this day, they still have the statue of the Southern people. And even though they can't summon a demigorgon with it, because it's the wrong statue for the wrong quadrant, they do think it brings them luck and power. It's like a good luck charm. And so now this Southern cult, they want their idol back. So now we have the second chapter, The City of the Black Idol. And this is drawn by Stan Dresser. I think I've seen him in some undergrounds or fanzines. This guy's a very idiosyncratic style. And if idiosyncratic is also kind of synonymous with not that good, kind of crude. It looks like something from a fanzine, you know? Some guy who really hasn't worked out his art yet. So now these guys are going to assault this other group of guys. I realize I'm getting too much into the nitty-gritty of this fantasy story. I really don't want to. It's all these fucking weird names and whatever. But these guys are going to attack the eastern city, the eastern quadrant or whatever, that cult. And they've got these, like, robots. But they're basically like, siege towers. They're going to bring down the walls. But they first need this one guy to steal the statue. Because remember, the Easterners have the Southern statue. So they gotta, because then they won't be protected by the luck of the idol anymore. His art is kind of interesting. Kind of neat, but it's also like I don't know. I definitely like it more than I did when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I didn't like anything that was kind of, not normal art. Quote unquote normal art. So there's lots of shenanigans. This guy's trying to get the idol. Of course, people are attacking him. This sorceress whips this demon on him. Like, that's a really interesting panel as the demon dissipates. So this guy who went to steal the idol, he's just like, I'm keeping it. And the other guys who, who were going to attack the city, they didn't really let it be known how much they want the idol. They really want it. They know how powerful it is. So they're all like, no, really, give it to us. And he's like, that wasn't part of the deal. I'm keeping it. But of course, they chase after him. One of these robots. This guy's name is Grimholt, by the way. So this thing's chasing him. And then this other courier says, give me the idol. And he says, yeah, you can have it. It's probably cursed. So this guy, Eroafin, he carried the idol for a while and then passed it on to this guy, this a mercenary with his group of warriors to protect it. So now we get to Charred, art by Richard Corben. This is a very stripped down Corben, which makes sense because if Corben was going full on with his airbrush and everything, it would really be jarring from the first 2 chapters. It still is because the first 2 chapters aren't that great, and this is fucking brilliant Corben work. But as you can see, he's not whipping out the airbrush. He's letting himself be a little rough in certain panels. Like, look at that panel. That's very rough for Corben. So now we see this warrior Charred. Kind of a weird name for a warrior. So now he has the idol. And we flash back. We see how he got it from that mercenary. Apparently the mercenary, all of his men were killed. And looks like he's dying. He's on his last legs. Because, of course, the other side has been sending all these assassins after them. They don't want the South to get their idol back. Of course, Corben's going to put this in. So Charred meets this woman at a lodge. And, of course, they have sex. But then the assassins show up. One of Charred's men tries to warn him, but he's shot before instantly. Charred grabs the woman and escapes. I love the way he draws this guy with his big schnoz. Big boobs, big cocks, big schnoz. Corben's good at all of it. So Charred's riding away, and then he loses track of the woman somewhere. And then all of a sudden, she's like in the mountains ahead of him. Astafia. And he says, we have no time. No time for questions. Over the mountains lies the guardian of graves. The burial ground is taboo, so they won't follow us. So she leads him there. God, I love that panel. It's that guy with the big schnoz. So it turns out his main lieutenant, this guy, he's been working for the assassin cult for years. So he wants to bring it back. He's in league with those, the Eastern Demigorgon people. So they have this amazing fight to the death. God, Corben is so good at fight scenes. Look how savage this is. You can feel like every blow. So he runs that guy through, the assassin. And then this giant dinosaur, the one we saw on the cover, he comes up, starts chomping down on people. And when he looks back, he sees the face of Astafia in this statuary. Turns out she was never there. She was just a figment of his imagination. Or, I mean, just like she was like a specter or a ghost. So then we see him pass on the idol to the next courier. And it's the guy from the beginning. So this is, flashing back. And so now this guy has it. So now back to, we have a one-page filler by Tim Kirk, kind of in between the chapters, where, because he's telling the story. And he says, yeah, and that's how I got it. He knows the assassins are after him. And then it seems there's an explosion. I don't quite understand. There's a glowing orb in that guy's hand. Maybe it's some kind of sorceress hand grenade or something. And it blows up. Now we have the fourth chapter, Crown of Fear. Now this is Herb Arnold's art. As you can see, it's kind of like bargain basement Corben. Still pretty darn good, but not nearly as good as Corben. So now these three guys realize they got to stop the statue getting to the south because that'll release the Demogorgon. So they know that the next courier is at the city called the Mothros. And luckily, their two cohorts, Quicksilver and Gunmetal, are there awaiting their instructions. So he sends Twirl. Twirl reveals that she has wings. He sends her along to pass the news to the guys. Now we see that guy Gunmetal, sorry. And he gets in the fight with this guy. I guess this guy betrayed Gunmetal years ago. Yeah, Herb Arnold's pretty damn good. But man, he was a lot to Corben. Excuse me. Yeah, this story really doesn't thrill me, to be honest. That's why I'm not really getting... I'm going to kind of pull back on the details. Just let you look at the art. Just a lot of fantasy shenanigans going on. But suffice to say, they make it to the south. The bad guys got the shrine. Of course, they're going to bring it to the south so the Demogorgon can be released. Some nice panels there. It's kind of interesting in this fantasy world they have guns. There's a few guns popping up here and there. Seems a little incongruent. Is that a word? Incongruous? Incongruent? I think I made that up. I kind of like these sand chips. So they're fighting over this idol. And the bad guy tries to get it from, what's his face? And he puts it in the slot, and the Demogorgon is awoken. Just wish this was drawn by Corben. It would look so much better. Just the sight of the Gorgon makes people just like lose their minds. So Quicksilver's going to try to destroy the Demogorgon. He's got some magic amulet or something. Twirl comes to help him out. They're lovers. And I guess Quicksilver drops this elemental charm into the magic circle, and it blows up everything. And that's it. Sorry, I skimmed over it so much. But we got a lot to cover today. We have 4 issues of this. And this story was a little ponderous to me. I love this effect, though. Look at it. I wonder if that's an actual photo. I wouldn't be surprised. And then we have some ads for Sal Q's things. Oh, this is actually a fake ad. So this is it's Ernie Colón. And it's a parody. And now the publishing event, no one has been waiting for #. So it's kind of make a parody of barbarian comics. He kills, he mutilates, he cuts, he jerks people around. See the battle of the century. Dozens of Mongols, Serbs, and Puerto Ricans. See the rape of the Hashu women. See the looting of Hashu City. It's just so silly. So it's basically saying, but you can't see none of this good trash. This could have been a collector's item. Because it's not, they keep saying it's not a real comic. But it could be. The coupon here even says, send a Monopoly bill, $10 denomination. Yeah, some of this stuff I would love to own. Gray Morrow portfolio. Prints of Bernie Wrightson art. I do own this. I showed this off in one of the videos. Now, here, this inside back cover, it says Bill 77. Grand Comic Database has no idea who this is. Nobody seems to know. I don't know. I kind of see a little Steve Lealola in there, but it's not him. Of course, it's got him Bill, but interesting. It's pretty okay. And here's a back cover by Herb Arnold. So the other issues are very different. They're real anthologies, you know. So now we get, this is the first issue I owned. Covered by Rich Larson and painted by Steve Fassner. They did a bunch of portfolios in the late 70s, early 80s. And very slick team. They did this. Rich Larson, you know, his pencils were kind of loose. But then Fassner would come over with an airbrush and make it all look like a sci-fi paperback. Pretty groovy looking stuff. Contents page, get a little drawing by Herb Arnold. And then this is the reason why I bought this first issue. Well, my first issue. 12 Parts by Mike Nasser. A Story of the Revelation, Chapter 12. I still love this art. I still like Mike Nasser. This makes no sense. This is the most like 70s gobbledygook. We are a whole spirit, a force of which parts were given to all, that they might feel and thus understand. I like how this creature is almost like Cthulhian, where I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at. They keep bringing this creature back, and it's just very nebulous. Like, if you asked me to describe this, I couldn't. I'd just be like, oh, it's got 7 heads, I guess, or 8 heads. It's just very weird. Oh, man, I love that face. That's totally like Neil Adams, acolyte going on. Here's this creature again. Now it looks just like a cliff or something. Yeah, there's a lot of mumbo jumbo here. Here they almost look like a 7-headed stallion. The time is at hand now, as it was before, and will be again. We are the superheroes. This nonsense. But, I don't know, I guess you could read this a little differently after 9/11. It's still kind of cool. I still like weird, groovy shit like that. I like the art. Now, here's someone I've never seen anywhere else. Gail Schlesser. I hated this comic as a kid because, you know, it looks goofy. It's like funny art. And I'm not a big fan of it now. And just very silly. So, I guess there's this war going on between the Naram and the Macrutians. And this one guy, the Taslan of Sawgirth, he basically wants peace just so he can go on his vacation. He was planning on vacationing in Macrutian land, but this war is gumming up his plans, so he uses his diplomacy to try to stop the war. And then we cut away to this family, this woman here. She's the mother of, like, I think 6 kids. And she's taken in her brother-in-law and her sister. I think they're refugees from the war. And even though they're guests in the home, they're always nagging her, telling her how to raise her son. Yeah, it's weird. It's just penciled. It's very kind of slapdash. As an adult, though, I can see, like, they've got a pretty good style. Gail Schlesser has a pretty decent style. But, yeah, it's just not very engaging, the story, either. It's just kind of like a bunch of people arguing. It's not the worst, but it's just like, nah. Next we have The Walls of the City. And this is a story by Stephen Grant, which I think this is before he even worked at Marvel. Or maybe it was right when he started. Art by Rich Larson and Tim Boxell. So it's kind of interesting that Rich Larson and Tim Boxell, you know, the great twisted underground cartoonist, he was just an inker for Rich Larson for a while. They were kind of a team. And I kind of like it. I would never imagine that, like, oh yeah, I'll get Tim Boxell to ink someone's pencils. He's such a singular artist unto himself. But he's pretty good. They make a good team, because I've seen Rich Larson without Tim Boxell, and I like it. So we see this woman. She escapes from this city, kind of a futuristic city. Apparently no one's allowed to leave the gates of the city. As she runs away, one of the guards is going to shoot her. And like the mayor says, or whatever, the leader says, you mustn't shoot, not into their world. She'll be back. She takes off all of her clothes, and she's frolicking in this beautiful nature. It's just like a sylvan paradise. And she's thinking to herself, it's unbelievable, no packaged food, fresh water instead of recycled. Why do they keep us in the city? There's so much room. I have to go back to the city and tell everyone. They've been lying to us. And meanwhile, we see these animals very menacingly looking at her, staring at her. And then the animals show up. And the way they're looking at her, she knows she's in trouble. She tries to run for her gun. God, I love these panels here. That's some fun storytelling. The horse chasing her. She gets her gun, but then this bird knocks it out of her hand. And then the horse knocks her out with his hoof. I really like this art. It's very lively. Really, it's kind of loose, but it makes it even more lively because it's kind of a little loose. And then we see the animals drag her dead body back to the city. And the governor there is like talking to the animals. It wasn't her fault. She escaped. I swear it won't happen again. And the animals look at each other and walk off. And then the governor tells his main, enforcer here. He's like, we're not strong enough to challenge him yet. But eventually, we'll lull them into, complacency. We'll pretend to be docile. And then we'll make it our world again. And they'll probably fuck it all up again. So apparently the animals took over the world because we were fucking it up so bad. Now next is just as confusing as it was when I was a kid. You can imagine reading this when you're 10, when you're used to reading, Hulk comics. It's called Hornimania. It's by this guy, Bill Maher, just like the comedian, spelled just like the comedian. And his wife, Nish, she does the script for it, but he does the story and the art. Very interesting artist, definitely has chops. And so let me give you an example. It's, the 70s, guys were always like trying to write this like I don't know, pseudo sci-fi future slang. Dread, alone in bed waking, Zete, gone sans breakers. Must be noveless for her to be ill, to feel the teeth. Self-only days. Shatterman. Guess it's time to get down to work again. Nova. So I read this as carefully as I could, and I didn't get much from it. It's kind of nonsense. It's almost like that language in Clockwork Orange, but even more impenetrable. But man, this guy can draw. And I kind of admire just he's telling this weird story. Like, it's not like, you can't just gloss over this. You got to read it carefully. But even reading carefully, I guess I'm not smart enough. Like, I wasn't sure what the hell was going on. The whole thing is written in this, whatever, this crazy diction. Yeah, this totally took me back. I remember reading this as a kid and just being like, what the? Even though I'm still kind of doing that now. Next, we have Ernie Colón writing and drawing his own creation. And I like Ernie Colón. So this is like probably the most straight Ernie Colón's ever drawn. Just trying to draw realistically. I guess he's done a few other things like that Underworld miniseries for DC. But, this is the guy who drew Richie Rich for 20 years. So it's interesting to see him draw like this. We also saw him draw that Tiger Man comic. Yeah, there's a video for that on the channel. But this is even more, like illustrative. So we see the cops. They find this dead guy. It looks like an animal mauled him. They're like, what the hell could have done this? But the lieutenant here notices that, like, wait a second. But there's man-sized footprints. So now we cut away to this guy, Noel Black. And apparently the guy who was killed was Dr. Hoffer, Otto Hoffer. And this guy's saying, oh, it's a shame about that guy, huh? And Noel Black has no sympathy. He basically says, his colleague says, oh man, the man's dead. You can't talk about him that way. And he's like, so what? A live schmuck? When he's dead is a dead schmuck. He tells them that the only thing Otto was brilliant at was conning people. And I guess he was like one of those scientists who just did horrible experiments. Pretty much just torturing animals. And so the cops come to interview Noel Black. And he touches the picture of his parents. He says, is this a picture of your parents? And Dr. Black freaks out. He's like, get your goddamn hands away from them. Turns out they were in Dachau during World War II. But they escaped. Or they survived it. They were guinea pigs for useless, cruel experiments. And, this is really nice art. So, there was a young doctor in charge of research at the camp named Otto Hofstadter. So that's the guy who was killed. He changed his name, came to America, and nobody knew he was a Nazi war criminal. And so his parents survived, like I said, they survived the camps. And then they had their son. But the experiments they did on him involving rabies, I guess it didn't affect them, but it affected the son. And he even admits to the lieutenant, he's like, well, yeah, when I was a kid, I'd have these horrible fits of anger. But even more remarkably, he would change physically. So it's almost like he's admitting to it. So the guy cuffs him. And then the lieutenant says something shitty. Basically makes fun of his parents. And Noah Black loses it. We see him turn into Manimal. And he rips the fucking lieutenant's face open. And rips his guts. And then jumps out the window. I loved this one when I was a kid. This one, you know, because this one's easy to understand. It's not all crazy, bizarro shit. But I also already liked Ernie Colón at that young an age. I think I probably had already seen him in Epic Illustrated and some other things. So next we have, this is kind of an interesting strip. It's Steel Souls by Dan Recchia. Never seen Dan Recchia before. But as you can see, very unique style. Of course, I hated this as a kid. I kind of like it now. So basically, this is a planet where all the humans have died. There just wasn't enough food. And eventually all the humans died off. And all the robots, who pretty much did everything anyway, they're just living on. And they're, I guess, kind of cataloging all the human culture. So they're almost like these one-page strips. And so here's the second one. And these just two robots are flying around just being like, you're talking about humans. And so they're very confused about how humans, you know, needed money to do certain services. And also they say, the hardest physical laborers acquired the least, while the mentally skilled acquired the most. Some acquired it at birth, some took it forcibly and violently, occasionally by fraud. Apparently the majority of their time was involved with acquiring and exchanging currency. Yes, they called it maturity. Ooh, how profound. I do love this cityscape, the way he draws it. Very interesting artist, very, definitely quirky. His own style. So now we have more Richard Larson and Tim Boxell, this time with a script by Jans Trinidad, and this is episode 1 of the Winter of '94. Troubadour is the name of this chapter. So we see this guy Zachary and his crew. A tanker full of oil is coming out of subspace. Now Zachary and his crew, they belong to the People's Energy Liberation Group. I like this how, you know, when I read these for the first time, 1994 seemed like way in the future. Like this could happen. But now I just think of 1994 and I'm wondering why these guys aren't wearing flannel and listening to ponderous music from Seattle. So they're basically pirates, Zachary and his crew. They take over the ship. Just like as pirates will do. He's got this four-armed buddy named Tom. Kind of like Tom, he's an alien. And basically they're like Robin Hood types. They're gonna take this oil and sell it really cheaply so people can afford it. Apparently, this is a dystopian future. The majority of people are poor, and it looks like Earth is in a second ice age, or at least the scenes we see, it's always cold, and everyone's like dying for fuel. You know, not to power their cars, just to burn, so they don't die of the cold. So they're heading to Earth to dispense this oil. The captain, who was recalcitrant and wouldn't, just give in, they just sent him out into space with an air tank. You know, it's hoping maybe someone will pick you up, but maybe they won't. Really like this Larson Boxell art. It's kind of weird, but it almost reminds me of Frank Stack, Fulbert Sturgeon in a weird way. Maybe because I just looked at that Jesus comic. More ads. We have a nice Ernie Colón Barbarian inside back cover. And, oh man, I love this cover by Rich Larson solo. And I loved it a lot when I was a teenager. I looked at this picture many, many times. But now as an old man who doesn't care about that kind of thing, I love these little critters. Devious looks on their face. And just the swoop of this crazy reptile. It's just a really well-composed drawing. By well-composed, I mean, that's a really nice rack. Okay. Hot stuff number 7. Mike Kaluta cover. I gotta say, not my favorite Mike Kaluta cover. It's fucking gorgeous. But it's him painting. It's rare that you get a painted cover by Mike Kaluta. Usually it's great, beautiful, luscious line art, like we just saw on those Doorway to Nightmares 2 videos ago. But it's still great, but it almost has this, seems muddied. Like when I see Kaluta art, I want to see it all. And it just looks a little dark. Could be the printing. Maybe the actual painting of this is gorgeous, but it does look a little too dark for me. It's still fucking amazing, especially this face in the circle. That's really nice stuff. But I'm just nitpicking. But I do like his line art covers way more than his painting. We have a contents page. This time we have a little spottillo from that Bill Maher guy. And now we have the second chapter of Manimal. So we see that lieutenant. They're taking the bandages off. He's pretty fucked. They're like, yeah, you're scarred for life. No amount of plastic surgery can really fix that. And you're blind in one eye. So this guy basically is kicked off the force. He can't really be a cop anymore. And he's just like, fine, I'll retire because he's going to spend the rest of his days hunting down Manimal. Now we see this cabal of old Nazis who escaped from Germany. And they're talking about this whole, that Otto guy getting killed. Apparently, there's other Nazis have been killed. So they're like, we got to do something about this. Look at the quality of illustration of this panel. That is, you'd never guess Ernie Colón could do that. This is some really good stuff. So now we see Noel Black. I think he's in a hotel. This neighbor comes by. They end up fucking. And now the Nazis have sent 2 assassins to Noel Black's place. Once again, just really, really great faces, great art. It's kind of a revelation. Well, I mean, not to me. I read it when I was 10, but I could imagine after, decades of looking at Ernie Colón, all his various styles. This is kind of startling. Sorry about that. I gotta have to get some water. So the assassins kick down the door. They kill that woman, that poor neighbor. I thought this was interesting too. Almost like that Batman that got pulled. You see the shadowy outline of his penis, which you never saw in a comic. I never saw that in a comic as a kid. So, I guess Noel was hiding behind this bathroom door. He confronts the bad guy, the assassin, and he turns into Manimal. He manimalizes himself and attacks him. The lieutenant was right on his tail. He was going to come talk to Noel Black. So he sees the surviving assassin run out the door. He shoots him because he won't drop his gun. And then when he comes in, the lieutenant says, can you hold on till I get an ambulance? And it says, next to Manimal in captivity. I guess Manimal I think he got shot, even though he killed the guy. Yeah, he was wounded. Next, we have chapter 2 of Hornomania. And once again, I have no fucking clue what's going on. But man, the art's even better this time. Look at that. It almost reminds me of Liberatore. And this picture always confused the hell out of me when I was a little boy. I was like, what? These bars are going through this lady's titties? I don't understand. It still confuses me. I still don't know what the hell's going on there. But man, I really like his art. Really interesting. And, you know, with the language, this slang, it's almost like a very punk rock comic. I didn't know what punk rock was when I was at that age. But it just seems to me like very of its time, like punk rock. Punk rock sci-fi. Once again, I can't explain this to you guys at all. Sorry. I'm going to try to find some another example. Here it is. I make way. Told this is anti-appropriate time for a Netzer kill. New target. Prime femme. Lesia Durit named. Outlands beach area. Guarded by 5 martial stop blocks. Copy the guide beam, and I'll see you there straight away. Or just straightway. I'm sorry, reading it out loud, I'm just like, this is dumb. I'd much rather understand what you're saying. That panel was very special to me, too, as a young teenager. It's weird how that stuff will definitely imprint in your brain. How intently I would stare at some of these panels and covers. Maybe it has something to do with orgone energy. I wish I knew what was going on in here. It looks interesting. It looks intriguing. But I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not smart enough. I'm not bilingual. I just know it's kind of sexy. And next, not for something completely different. All the King's Man. And it's kind of like a Robin Hood tale, except it's a female Robin Hood. Her name's Lenka. But other than that, it totally reads like a Robin Hood tale. The setting, everything about it. The story's by Howard Hill, who I never heard of, and art by Sonny Trinidad, who did, hundreds of stories at DC. And I think Warren, too. I believe he's a Filipino comic artist. And so, of course, there's word of a gold shipment, of the King's gold shipment, and Lenka and her merry band are going to intercept it and distribute the gold amongst the poor. We see the shitty king here, and the whole thing's a trap. He put out word that there was a gold shipment. Really, it's just going to hold this giant monster dude they found in some other land somewhere. So now we see Lenka and her dudes. They're lying in wait for the coach to come by, which it does. Man, Sonny Trinidad, great illustrator. But it's just like something about it, like, it's so weird. Like, this art is technically great, but there's something about a lot of these Filipino artists where I'm just like, it just falls flat. Maybe it's all their faces are kind of weird looking. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. I find the same thing with Alfredo Alcala. God, it's stuff like Voltaire. It's fucking amazing. But it's also not my favorite cartooning in the world. I'd much rather look at, I don't know, anyone. Alex Toth, Michael Golden, lots of guys. So they fall for the trap. The King's main honcho here, he opens the door, and this thing comes out and attacks them all. So now we have a pretty kick-ass fight where everyone's trying to kill this monster. I guess its skin is really hard. It looks like there's no way they're going to be able to kill it. I do like this little sequence. This is pretty cool. He throws Lenka, and she, like, twists around, grabs this vine, and swings back. I just like the way it's like... And when she swings back, she's got this... she rips off this branch. And it goes right into his neck. And she kills it. And then she ties up the King's men. And they all have a good laugh, just like any Robin Hood tale. It's a very simple, goofy tale. It's so weird how Hot Stuff, it's like, this is such a mixed bag, you know? Next, we have chapter 2 of Winter of '94. And we see some of that. Look how loose this is and kooky, cartoony almost. We see these two guys. They're riding this bullet train around full of coal. One of them says, we should have got the military escort. You know, there's a lot of people who would like to get their hands on this shit. And the other guy's like, you're crazy. There's going to be no problems. Of course, we cut away to a bunch of dynamite on the tracks, and we see these two guys, this lady and this guy. They do the plunger. There's an explosion on the tracks. The train is derailed. And we see coal spilling everywhere on the snow. And then we see, they call them the plebes. These are basically like, you know, all the downtrodden, the poor people. And the woman who like planned this whole thing, she's like trying to say, guys, calm down. The trucks are coming. We'll load them up calmly and take all the coal. But they're just all like, it's every man for himself. I'm going to grab as much coal as I can. The two trucks show up and they're a bunch of yahoos. They kind of crash into each other. And one of them loses control and spills over. So the whole time she's trying to get them, you know, she's like, guys, come on. You're defeating yourselves. And they start fighting over the coal, even though there's more than enough for everyone. And she says, that's it, I'm leaving. Fuck you guys. And then right then the government helicopters show up. These sci-fi looking helicopters. And they've got these like death rays basically. And they just start killing everyone. I kind of like this sequence. Just them getting targeted. It's like a video game screen. Them just killing everyone. God, I just love that panel. I really like Richard Larson's layouts and stuff. So now that the lady, you know, the smart one, she's running for her life. And then all of a sudden, this helicopter that was chasing her blows up. Her friends show up. It's that guy, Zachary, that we saw last time. And Tom, the four-armed guy, they say, get in. And they put her on the ship. And she tells them, she's just like, oh, man, those fucking plebes. They're so goddamn dumb. Even though they fight for the plebes, they're also a bunch of yahoos. We have another one-pager about of Steel Souls by Dan Recchia. This one I don't really understand at all. But they're still doing like cataloging all of human achievement, looking at all the books and files and stuff. And really do like this art. It's really interesting and otherworldly or future worldly. We have an editorial from Sal Q here. Another drawing from Bill Maher. And this is an interesting strip. It's Bill and Nish Maher. I think actually this is just Bill Maher solo. And it's like an autobio comic. It's like him talking about living with Nish, his new wife, and drawing comics. And, you know, like making fun of all the shit at the time, like disco. They go to see Saturday Night Fever. And you have a night on the town. And they go to this place that serves food, but also has a newsstand. And the new issue of Hot Stuff is just coming out. And all of a sudden, Bill Maher gets sucked into his pencil. I guess this happened before. He's like, oh, no, not again. And all of a sudden, we see him now. Looks like he's fine. And this guy in a leather hat, he's all like reading Hornomania in Hot Stuff. And he's just like, what? There ain't no cute little devil in here. Just big titties. Because he was expecting Harvey's Hot Stuff. And, you know, Bill Maher's kind of looking over at him. And the guy says, what you looking at? Can't you see I already got a date? And basically he's being a macho jerk. And so Bill Maher thinks to himself, assholes. And their heads pop like popcorn. He goes back to have his late night dinner with Nish. And the waiter, one of the waiters spills all the shit on them. So Bill Maher says, asshole, and his head pops like a big piece of popcorn. So on the way home, they talk about this, and she's like, oh my God, you've got this power, you got to use it. And, you know, there's this old boyfriend I had who was a total dick to me. Let's go by his house. So he goes by the house. And because he's at a far distance, he can only turn it into a kernel of corn at first. But then when he yells asshole really loudly, it's popcorn again. His wife loves it. He stays up all night thinking about what he should do with his power and how he should just take out everyone who's an asshole. Even celebrities like Ricardo Montalban and Herb Villachet. We saw these little panels of all these celebrities with their little taglines. Anita Bryant, Charles Schultz, he says, which is that's kind of weird. And I guess maybe because Charles Schultz was seen as egotistical, because the panel of him says Shakespeare, Dickens, me. I don't know, maybe he did say something like that in an interview, but I doubt it. He seemed pretty self-effacing, that guy. And he's thinking about all the people he's gonna make their brains pop, and then, of course, his brain pops because he's being an asshole. And then we see him get sucked back into the pencil, and then he comes out. It turns out it was all in his head. So this time when the guy in the leather hat says this bullshit to him, he doesn't snap back at him. He just says, yeah, whatever. Yeah, odd story. Also, though, when I was a kid, though, this was fascinating to me, like an autobiography comic. I was like, this is just about this guy. I mean, it's obviously, there's a fantasy element, a dream sequence. But, that was, I had not read Harvey Pekar at that time or anyone. So, it was another interesting revelation for me when I was a little kid. Some more ads for Sal Q stuff. And guys, I love this so much. This inside back cover by Terry Austin. And I've said this before, but it just makes me so sad that Terry Austin didn't pencil more. He's amazing. Look at it. Just everything about this is great. The imagination of these characters, it's just great character design. Love this stuff. And then we have a back cover by Larson and Boxell again, which is pretty cool. I don't know why this kind of reminds me of like Von Baudet Wizards or something, but not as cartoony. But yeah, I liked this when I was a kid, and I like it now still. Next, guys, look at this. Now, when I was 10 or 11, and even now, this is my meat. Just this era Neal Adams. Look at the faces on these guys, how well drawn they are, and the character in them. This is just perfect Neal Adams to me. Love this shit. So obviously this is illustrating Manimal. The third chapter is going to be in here. We have the contents page with a Bill Maher illustration. And then we start off with a Bill Maher comic, The Americanization of Japan. Now this is a really weird, odd comic, and I really like it. Definitely like it more as an adult. But I don't understand the ending at all. So we basically just see this kind of like... Remember, this is 1978. There wasn't much manga and anime in America at all. So I don't know if Bill Maher spent some time in Japan, because this is a pretty damn good approximation of that style. Most people didn't even know that style at the time, They had no way of even seeing that stuff. So it's basically just this, nuclear family. The father goes to sleep drinking Johnny Walker and reading hot stuff. And then there's a knock at the door. The mother's ignoring them. She's on the phone constantly. And it's Godzilla. And Godzilla has a Girl Scout uniform on, and he's selling cookies. So the little girl, the eldest daughter here, gets the money out of her mom's purse and pays Godzilla. They bring this giant box of cookies into their house. They dump their dinner, and we see them splitting up all the cookies. And they're just going to gorge on cookies. The father's asleep, listening to his stereophonic sound. And then this is the part. We see Godzilla walking down the street, and I don't know if that's... I assume this is the house that we just saw, the family. It's just like blown up, as if a tornado hits it. And another house here is already gone. I don't know if are the cookies bombs? Did they explode? I don't know. I don't understand the story at all. But I just like how odd it is. Definitely like something that could be in heavy metal. Next we have chapter 3 of The Winter of '94. Jan Sternad, Richard Larson, and Tim Boxell once again. We see Zachary having a memory of hanging out with the sun on this paradisical planet. The sun's talking about how he can point out Earth. He's really good with astronomy. because Earth is far away. They're on this alien planet named Divya. Turns out it's all just a dream. And Zachary's asleep. Tom wakes him up. He says, Tom, we got to get out of here. They're onto us. This is an amazing sequence here. I love this page. This is just some amazing layouts and line work. Really, hats off to Tim Boxell here. His inking is so great. I love these helicopters. And then they all get in one of their little, whatever. What do you call these things? Flivers, as Philip K. Dick would call them. Get in their flivers and fly off, our three heroes. Just want to linger on this so much. Such a great sequence of panels there. I see a lot of Steve Ditko in some of his faces here. And I didn't mention it last time, some of those plebes with their wild eyes as they try to steal the coal. They definitely saw some Ditko faces popping up in there. So they evade. These government ships are chasing after them, these helicopters. And with some fancy maneuvering, they evade them. I'm not even quite sure what's going on here. It's just chaos, but it looks great. Almost on the level of an abstract piece of art. Like this could be just some great abstract piece of art to me. So they make it up to their space station, our heroes. They evade the bad guys and... So Zachary tells Tom, he says, you know what, I'm done with all this conflict, whatever. I'm taking my money, my share of the loot, and I'm just going to retire to Divya. Because Divya is supposedly this paradise planet. And Tom says, listen, you got to find out something. I got to tell you something about Divya. Sit down. And now Zachary goes to that, I still don't know her name, this woman. Oh, Marta. He says, listen, we can't go to Divya. Tom just told me the truth. Divya is a dying world. They want the Earth. They're trying to take it from us. And what's worse, I've been helping them to do it. And then right then, they get news that a Divian warship is attacking them, is on their tail. That's kind of odd there. That's some weird inking all around. There's so many different, like, weird textures in that. Next, we have Heartfelt Thanks. This is art by Ken Barr, the science fiction cover artist. Did, like, hundreds of paperbacks. And story by his wife, Kathy Barr. And this is kind of like, this could be in a, I don't know, like a Twilight Zone comic from Gold Key or something. So we see this doctor, kind of like Fantastic Voyage. He's figured out a way to shrink himself down to microscopic size so he can actually do heart surgery. Like, actually, you know, he's a little microbe size. He can actually go into the heart and take care of stuff. We flash back. We realize his patient is this multi-millionaire, well, billionaire, and he's changing his will. He wants to donate most of his money to this doctor and to his research hospital. Now, you'd think this doctor will be grateful, but when he hears news of it, he says, I need that money now. It is vital to the hospital, to the world. So he decides to kill the guy. Hey, this guy's got a congenital heart condition. He's going to, like, supposedly fix it, but really, he's going to weaken his heart wall. So that's his plan. So he shrinks down, is injected into the bloodstream, and he does just that. He goes to the heart, puts in some crappy sutures that'll probably pop in a week or two, and then weakens the heart wall here. That's some pretty amazing, just inking, you know, with the pointillism and stuff. It looks really good. But then, just like in any cheesy story, the ironic twist is, before he can leave, the guy has a heart attack. And it crushes him. He's caught in the heart attack. That's pretty impressive, this page here. Really like that. We have an editorial with a drawing by Bill Maher. If there was going to be a ninth issue, we would have been introduced to Scarecrow. I'll tell you the lineup for the ninth issue, which never came out. A cover by Neil Adams and Richard Corben, collaborating. Ernie Colón, probably Manimal Chapter 4. Mike Nasser, the Mayors, and then John Byrne and Terry Austin. So, damn, I wish that came out. So here's Manimal Chapter 3 by Ernie Colón. And look at this. He's getting even slicker. He looks like he's using I don't know, I don't think it's airbrush, but whatever. It's really more slick than the first two chapters. So Joel Black gets sent to jail. At his trial, they know everything. They know that this guy was a Nazi. He tortured his parents. But they're like, the judge is like, but we have to have a hard line between, law and order and anarchy. You can't take the law in your own hands. Look at the drawing there. That's the evil Nazi doctor. Now look at this, guys. If you're my age, you might know this. But for some reason, the judge, Ernie Colón, just found a picture of Ed Asner and drew him just like Ed Asner, Lou Grant from Mary Tyler Moore. It's very kind of odd. So now we see these two Nazis reading the news of Noel Black being convicted for 99 years. And they're like, well, I guess that's over. He's like, fuck no. We're not going to arrest him until he's dead. We got contacts in jail just for the honor of our Nazi brethren. He's got to be killed. So we see Noel Black get to jail. Of course, all these assholes are, picking on him. And they're also hired to kill him. The leader here, the cool-looking guy with the cigarette, he's like, let's let him settle in for a few days, and then we'll stick him. So a few days later, this balding guy, same guy from the cover here, except Neil Adams tries a much more cooler looking. He starts cutting up Noel Black. And he basically, right before he does the killing blow, he says, hey, I'm supposed to deliver a message. This is from the friends of Otto Hofstadter. They wish you a happy journey. And of course, that just sends him over the brink. Look at this, another really just well-illustrated panel there. So Noel Black turns into Manimal again. God, that's brutal. He just snaps his arm in half. And he gives him a message. So later on, we're in the infirmary. And this cool dude, Tommy, he kind of runs the prison. He's like, you fucked up. I don't believe your story about him turning into a fucking werewolf, And so as he's leaving, he tells this guy, he fucking works for the prison. This guy's like a medic or something. But I guess everyone's in Tommy's pocket. So he's like, break his other arm. Yes, Tommy. And then we hear the guy screaming from the other room. So now apparently we're cutting ahead. We see two more Nazi guys talking about Noel Black. And one of them is all like, very disappointed that he's still alive after a month. The other guy says, hey, he's in there for 99 years. He's not going to survive. We'll get him. And then as they're talking, all of a sudden, God, I love it. When I was a kid, that kind of blew me away. I was like, whoa. This bullet takes out the bald guy and then takes out the other guy. And they're like, the animal is out of jail. It's not possible. And we see Noel Black in silhouette here with a rifle on his back as he moves toward an uncertain future in search of the single meaningful force in him, the kill. They don't explain at all how he gets out of prison. But I guess if you're a manimal, you can do amazing things. Next we have Starblind, written by Niccolo Cutie, the guy who did like 100 Warren comics, and art by Charles Roblin. I'm pretty sure this is the same guy who did that Tex Benson comic during the 80s black and white bloom under the name Chuck Roblin. But this is 78, so I guess he was around for a while. Pretty sharp art, very like trying to do like Wally Woody C pastiche with a little, Alex Raymond thrown in and Hal Williamson. And it's all told in verse. The stars are a sight to see in the night, but travelers take care where you gaze. Turn if you can from Aldebaran, shun the sign of Orion's Wait, is it Betelgeuse? Betelgeuse. That doesn't rhyme at all. But for the most part, it rhymes. We see these three spacemen on a planet, and they pull into this planet. At this bar, they meet this weird lizard-looking dude who's a little booze hound. Turns out he was a human, but an alien germ turned him into this, like, reptile. So I guess they're back in the ship. They take that guy along with them. They've got polarized shields so they don't go star blind. I guess looking at stars makes you go blind. I never heard this before in a sci-fi thing. God, that looks like just a total wood swipe there. I've seen that position before, everything about that. And something goes kablooey in their computer, and the polarized screens don't work. So the whole crew, these three guys, they get caught by the starlight, and they go blind. The lizard dude, he's got these eyeballs, these shaded eyelids that kind of slip down. So he is not blind. So using him as the navigator, they all manage to safely land at the next spaceport. Here's what they look like. Once everyone gets out of the ship, everyone's shocked to see them. They're like, oh my God, their eyes are burned away. So I guess they continue to ply the spaceways with that lizard guy. And they're a team. Next is the last chapter of Winter of 94, episode 4. Same creative team, of course. And now, where we left off, the Divian warship is chasing our heroes. And Tom, the pilot here, is doing an amazing job of evading them. God, that's a great panel. Look at all these asteroids. Man, look at that. That's some weird looking stuff. It's almost like Frank Thorne if he was melting. His pen was melting. The nib was melting. So, of course, Zachary and the good guys, they evade the bad guys in this asteroid belt. So, Zachary, I don't know how he found this out, but he tells Marta, he says, yeah, the Divians have already won. There's this gas from Divya, and apparently, when we went back to Earth, our ship had some of these microbes, this hardy microbe on our hull. So we infected Earth's atmosphere, and basically, the next generation will be born sterile. So there's basically 2 generations left of humans on Earth. So the Divians show up again. Once again, they lose them. This time they blow them up. So the Divians are out of the picture. And so they're like, what the hell are we going to do? Divya is a wasteland. It's a shit planet. Earth is going to be depopulated soon. So they basically just head out to deep space. And Zachary just says, the ship's still in pretty good shape, and there's a lot of planets out there. So I guess they're just going to keep wandering around till they find a planet. Ads for Sal Q stuff. Here's that Bernie Wrightson portfolio. We looked at that on one of the Academy Roundups. And look at this. I love this back cover by Larson and Boxell. You can see more of the Boxell influence in this. Just creepy, weird. Like, what the hell's going on here? There's a whole story behind this picture. I really like the way Larson draws these va-va-voom girls. He's very good at good girl art. Great back cover. So there you go, guys. Hot stuff. Number 5 through 8. Hope I wasn't too long-winded in this, but this stirs up a lot of memories in me, and every story in this is like imprinted in my brain, even the ones I don't understand, because I just looked at this comic over and over as a kid. Every couple of weeks I'd take it out of the box and flip through it and be like, oh, wow, I wish I had more of these. But this is the one I got years later. I only had these 3 as a kid. Probably got this in my 20s, and then I've never found the other ones, unfortunately, so kind of a damn shame. Maybe one day I'll find them relatively cheap. But yeah, I looked on the GCD. They got a lot of great stuff in those first 4 issues. Lots of great Corben and even a Neil Adams 2-page stories in one of them. More Ken Barr. There's some Bernie Wrightson art. So if you guys can find them, good luck to you. And they look really good. But these are pretty damn good too. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.